Okay, fifth grade, we're going to continue here on number 4 with 3/7 and 1/2. We take our denominators, 7 and 2, and multiply them so we can get our common denominator. So 7 times 2 here is 14. Now we need to make equivalent fractions. So 3/7 has to equal something over 14. And now we find that by figuring out what did we multiply by. 7 times what gives me 14? Times 2. Good, so we'll do the same to the top. 3 times 2 gives us 6. So now we have 6/14. Now we need to do the same for 1/2. We have to make it something out of 14. 2 times what gives me 14? Good, 7. And 1 times 7 gives us 7. So now our common denominator is 14. So you have 6/14 and 7/14. All right, good job, fifth grade. Okay. For numbers 5 and 6, it says find a common denominator for each pair of fractions, then rename each fraction. That's basically what we did for 1 through 4 too, so we're going to continue to do it here. So between 1/5 and 3/10, okay, we have to find a common denominator. This one, we could do it 2 ways. We see that 10 is a multiple of 5. So 3/10 could stay 3/10, and then we would only need to rename 1/5. Or you could do what we've been doing and take our denominators, which are 5 and 10, and do 5 times 10, which gives me what? 50, okay, and make equivalent. Now we need to rename our fractions using the common denominator of 50. Okay, 5 times what gives us 50? 10, good, and 1 times 10 gives us 10. And now we need to do the same for 3/10. We need to rename it with the denominator of 50. 10 times what gives us 50? 5. And 3 times 5 gives us 15. Okay? Or, like I said before, we could have just left 3/10 and changed 1/5 to something out of 10. 5 times 2 gave us 10. 1 times 2 would give us 2. So we could have had 2/10 and 3/10. We could have used either way. Okay? So when it comes to your practice tonight, you will be able to make that choice if it is available. Okay, let's go to number 6. We have 1/2 and 2/5. Okay, I'm looking at my denominators. This one will only be one way because 2 does not have any multiples of 5 and vice versa. So we do have to take our denominators and multiply them to get our common denominator. So 2 times 5 gives us what? 10. Good. Okay, so now we make equivalent fractions using the denominator 10. 2 times what gives us 10? 5, good, and 1 times 5 gives us 5, good. Same thing for 2/5 now. We have to use the common denominator of 10 to make equivalent fractions with. 5 times what gives us 10? 2, good, and 2 times 2 gives us 4. So now we have 5/10 and 4/10. All right, good job, fifth grade. If you have any questions, let's get them down. Okay, number 7. It says, how many 12ths are in each 1/3 section of Tyrone's rectangle, and how many 12ths are in each 1/4 section of Sally's rectangle? They're taking you back to our first example. We kind of already said it, but we're going to walk through it again. So they want to know how many 12ths of each. So we have to take our fraction 1/3 and make it out of 12. 3 times what gave us the 12? 4. 1 times 4 gives us 4. So how many 12ths? 4 12ths. Okay, now we need to do the same with 1/4. How many 4ths are in 12? 4 times what gives us 12? 3. 1 times 3 gives us 3. So how many 4ths are in 12? 3. Okay, and we talked about that earlier, and we had the picture at the beginning of our lesson. All right, good job. Number 8. Says, construct arguments. Is the product of 2 denominators always a common denominator? Give an example in your explanation. What's the answer to that? Will it always be a common denominator if we multiply those bottom denominators? Yes, and you can give any example from what we just did in our lesson. So you could take 1/2 and 1/6. What do we always do? We multiply the denominators. Okay, so 2 times 6 gives us 12, and then you rename your fractions, the same thing. Okay, so 1/2 to equal 6/12, and then we take 1/6 to equal something out of 12. We times that by 2, this by 2, So then we have 6/12 and 2/12. So the answer is yes, and here's an example, and you could have given any example. All right, good job. All right, we're going to go to your independent practice here now quickly, and it says for 9 through 12, find a common denominator for each pair. So for this one, they're just asking for the denominator. How can I find a common denominator for 4/5 and 3/8? What do we have to do? Just multiply your what? Denominators. What are they? 5 and 8. What is 5 times 8? 40. So what will be the common denominator that we could use? 40. And that's what they want for numbers 9 through 12. They just want the number you would use for the denominator. Now for the numbers 13 through 16, it says find a common denominator for each pair, then rename it. And that's what we've been practicing on. So let's find our common denominator. Here, what will we do? 5 times 6. What does 5 times 6 give us? 30. Okay, so our common denominator will be 30. And now we need to rename them. How do we rename them? We need to make equivalent what? Fractions. So we're going to take 2/5 now and rename them with the denominator of 30. Okay, so 5 times what gives us 30? 6. Good. 2 times 6 gives us what? 12. So we rename it to 12/30ths. Now what about 1/6? We need to do the same. 1/6, so we need to use the common denominator of 30. 6 times what gives us 30? Good. 5. And 1 times 5 gives us 5. So we rename them as 12/30ths and 5/30ths. So now they have the same denominator. Okay. That's it, 5th grade. That's our lesson. So I need you to write down any and all questions that you have, please. And then I want you to complete page 233. You will see here 10 and 11 and 14 and 15 and follow the directions that I just modeled on the board and from your textbook. Make sure they're in your spiral, and we'll see you in class.